The Las Vegas Strip, once the pulsating, chaotic, and incandescent heart of America. For generations, it was the promised land where millions upon millions gathered each year, desperately chasing the phantom of fortune and the intoxicating dream of Sin City. But now, in 2025, a sinister rot has set in. The lights still burn, but they illuminate nothing but emptiness. The crowds are a memory, the casinos echoing cavernous tombs, and the electric hum that once defined this metropolis has been suffocated by a deafening silence. The official excuse? They blame inflation, exorbitant airfare, and some vague notion of changing travel habits. But if you listen to the whispers of the people who truly run this town, the dealers, the bartenders, the hotel staff, they will tell you that Story is a carefully crafted deception. In hushed tones and fearful confessions, a far more disturbing truth is bleeding out. They've admitted something that will chill you to the bone. Vegas is being emptied on purpose. These aren't wild-eyed conspiracy theorists. These are the loyal workers who polished the floors until they gleamed. The ones who poured the drinks and dealt the cards. They are the silent witnesses to the schemes hatched behind the velvet curtains. They've been given the unthinkable orders. Close down profitable tables, keep entire floors shrouded in darkness, and jack up prices until the everyday tourist can no longer afford to exist here. And now, their confessions are ripping that curtain down, exposing a malicious secret the casinos would kill to keep hidden. But why? Why would Las Vegas deliberately drive away its own lifeblood? What is the terrifying endgame behind this engineered silence? Tonight, we expose the truth, not through press releases, but through the damning words of the strip workers themselves. And be warned, their confessions will irrevocably poison the way you see Las Vegas. To comprehend the sheer gravity of these confessions, you must first remember the Las Vegas that was. For decades, this city was more than a monument to neon. It was a living, breathing organism of pure energy, relentless motion, and endless, crushing crowds. One veteran dealer, a man who's been on the strip since the 1990s, described the ghost of that era. Back then, the dealing was eternal. The tables were always overflowing. I could barely steal a moment for a break because another player was always clawing for that seat. The hard numbers validate his memory. By the early 2000s, over 35 million tourists were swarming Las Vegas every single year. Hotels were bursting, boasting occupancy rates that soared above 90% as casinos vacuumed up billions. For the bartenders, the cocktail servers, the performers, and the cabbies, it was nothing short of a golden age. We didn't just have jobs, a hotel housekeeper lamented. We had careers. Vegas was the lifeline for our families. The Strip wasn't just for the high rollers either. It was for everyone. Families were lured in by cheap buffets and resorts that felt like theme parks. Couples arrived for whirlwind weddings and weekends of pure, unadulterated chaos. Businessmen crammed into convention halls, while the biggest stars on the planet headlined sold-out shows. The workers all recall the hum of ceaseless life. It was, they say, a tangible, living heartbeat. A longtime bartender put it this way: every night was a Friday night. Every single day felt like New Year's Eve. Even global catastrophes couldn't stop it. After the 2008 financial meltdown, Vegas stumbled, but it got back up and roared back. After the 2020 pandemic, when the Strip was plunged into an unnatural darkness, the return of the public was so immense that workers called it a tidal wave. It was like the dam just shattered, a security guard recounted. People were desperate to get back to Vegas, and we were desperate to have them. That was the sacred rhythm of this city. No matter what horror the world threw at it, the crowds always returned. For the workers, that rhythm was life itself. They organized their schedule, their finances, and their very sense of self around the one unwavering certainty that the Strip would forever be full. And that is what makes the chilling silence of 2025 so profoundly unnatural. For the first time in its storied history, the Strip doesn't feel like it's recovering. It feels like it's being executed. Entire casinos are left dim. Lounges that once pulsed with life now stand as silent, empty crypts. Dealers are ordered not to open tables. Hotel rooms remain locked and barren even as desperate tourists plead for a place to stay. Workers who once thrived on the adrenaline of motion are now forced to stand perfectly still, forced to watch as the city they sustained is deliberately and unnaturally bled dry. Something is different this time, a veteran cocktail server admitted, her voice trembling with dread. Vegas has been wounded before, but this feels intentional. It's like they want us to believe the party is over for good. The hollowing out of Las Vegas was no accident. It crept in like a disease, slowly and methodically. As early as 2023, workers on the front lines began to see alarming signs that directly contradicted the official narrative being peddled to the public. Hotel occupancy was slipping. But instead of fighting to fill the rooms, management made an outrageous decision. They began intentionally closing off huge sections of their own properties. A housekeeper recalled the horrifying moment she knew something was deeply wrong. We were ordered to clean only half the tower. The rest was to be left dark, even as we watched tourists lined up at the front desk begging for a room. They told us leave it empty. It was insanity. Bartenders tell the exact same story of sabotage. Suddenly, the price of a cocktail more than doubled. Just Asleep, simple drinks that were always $8 were suddenly $20, sometimes even more. They didn't want people enjoying themselves at the bar anymore, one bartender confessed. It was clear they just wanted people gone. The end game was clear. They were purging the regulars, engineering a Vegas so obscenely expensive that the average person would be priced out. And the dealers? They were on the front lines, witnessing the betrayal firsthand. For decades, the lifeblood of the casinos was the roar of a packed gaming floor. The symphony of ringing slots, rolling dice, and clattering chips was being silenced. By late 2024, a chilling new directive came down. Shut the tables down, even with players waiting. We had crowds begging to play, one dealer recounted in disbelief, but the suits ordered us to kill the action. I've never witnessed anything like it. This wasn't a business slump, it was a calculated act of self-sabotage. Initially, the staff chalked it up to sheer incompetence. Perhaps the corporate overlords were just clueless, completely disconnected from the reality on the floor. But as the same bizarre order echoed across the strip, the hushed, fearful conversations started. From security guards to bartenders, from dealers to waitresses, a single terrifying suspicion took hold. This hollow emptiness wasn't an accident. It was intentional. And it wasn't just the workers. Tourists were sounding the alarm. Social media became a gallery of horrors filled with images of cavernous, empty casino floors. In December of 2024, a viral TikTok captured the nightmare. A lone traveler wandering through a dimly lit, silent resort, his voice echoing in the void, lamenting, "This isn't Vegas. It's a ghost town." And the casino's response to this public relations disaster? Not discounts, not dazzling promotions, but a deafening, arrogant silence. They doubled down, hiking fees, inventing new surcharges, and gutting services. To the outside world, it reeked of corporate greed. But to the insiders, it was an unmistakable message. The everyday person was no longer welcome. The rot spread even to the entertainment scene, where legendary shows, once sold out for months, were suddenly and inexplicably shuttered. A stagehand from a world-famous theater confessed the bone-chilling directive they received. We weren't ordered to sell more tickets. We were told the show itself was unnecessary. The bosses wanted the stage to go dark. By early 2025, the devastating pattern was undeniable. The loyal families, the multi-generational visitors, they simply vanished. The high-rolling international crowds from China and Canada, once the lifeblood of the high-limit rooms, disappeared completely. And through it all, the casinos didn't even flinch. The workers watched, utterly bewildered. 10 years ago, a downturn like this would have sent the executives into a full-blown panic, a veteran dealer stated grimly. Now, they just shrug their shoulders. It's as if they're actively trying to kill this city, Mather point. These confessions from the heart of the machine expose a horrifying truth. The emptiness wasn't a symptom of a failing economy. It was a meticulously executed strategy. Every single order, every locked door, every outrageously priced cocktail was a breadcrumb leading to a much larger, more sinister plan. And while the executives never spoke its name, the workers felt it in their bones. Our instructions were simple. Don't ask questions, a server confessed. But we didn't have to. We all knew the strip was being deliberately gutted from the inside out. Meanwhile, the official narrative peddled by Nevada authorities was a predictable cocktail of excuses. Inflation, soaring airfare, changing tastes. But the people on the ground, the ones living and breathing this nightmare, they knew that was a lie. They were witnessing a city intentionally putting itself into a coma, throttling its own vibrant energy and cultivating an unnatural, eerie silence where glorious chaos once reigned. And with every decibel the strip lost, the questions grew deafeningly loud. Why would Las Vegas declare war on its own customers? Who stands to profit from a desolate, empty strip? And the most terrifying question of all, what is the truly unspeakable secret these workers are confessing about the manufactured silence of Sin City? But when the insiders finally broke their silence, the grim reality became pitch black. This wasn't gossip. These were direct, first-hand accounts from the very people who are the lifeblood of this city. A dealer, a 20-year veteran of the Felt, laid out the insane orders from 2024. We had 6 tables, fully staffed and ready to go. The command came down, open only 2. I had gamblers pleading with me to open a game, and I had to refuse. Management's words still haunt me. Keep it quiet. Keep it empty. In that moment, I knew this had nothing to do with business. This was about absolute control. A bartender from an iconic strip casino echoed the horror. He recalled the old days when cheap drinks were the bait to keep you playing, to keep you happy. By 2025, that philosophy was dead and buried. We were ordered to double, sometimes triple the price of a cocktail. Of course, people got disgusted and walked away. We quickly learned that was the entire point. Management was done with the regular folks. This was about engineering a new clientele, about filtering the masses out and handpicking who was allowed to stay. The rot went all the way to the hotel towers. A housekeeper confessed, entire floors, half the hotel, were just blocked. We were forbidden from even entering to clean them. The order was just, those floors stay closed. When I dared to ask why, the only answer I ever got was a cold, we want them empty. Even the security teams, whose job was once to manage crowds, were given contradictory orders. Now, they were to prevent them. My entire career, my job was to facilitate the flow of people, to keep that Vegas energy pumping, one guard revealed. Suddenly, our new mission was to stop people from lingering. No pictures, no hanging around. It was a clear, coordinated effort to make the strip feel sterile and dead. And the entertainers, they had their own chilling stories to tell. A showgirl, a strip icon since the 2010s, confessed, my job was ripped away, not because our show bombed, but because they deliberately buried it. They killed it before it ever had a chance to breathe. It was a calculated blackout, an intentional extinguishing of the lights. And when pieced together, these hushed confessions reveal a horrifying truth. This wasn't just a downturn workers were witnessing. They were the unwilling architects of it. The casinos were systematically strangling capacity, inflating prices to obscene levels and gutting entertainment, all while their own staff were treated like mushrooms, fed lies, and kept in the dark. Some veterans on the floor didn't mince words about the sinister game being played. This is a hostile takeover of Vegas, a dealer with decades of experience warned, and we're just the disposable pieces on their board. The age of the crowd is over. They're chasing the whales now, the high-rolling VIPs who drop millions without blinking. The rest of us? We're just trash to be swept aside, a bartender grimly confirmed. This isn't about today's bottom line. It's about forging a new, sterile Vegas for the future. A future where the average person is explicitly unwelcome. These gut-wrenching accounts also expose the iron fist of management. Any employee brave enough to question the ghost town policies, the empty tables, the vacant rooms, was immediately and coldly shut down. We were told to know our place, that this was, quote, above our pay grade, a server admitted with a shiver. We could all feel the sickness in the air, but who is willing to get fired for asking why? By the dawn of 2025, these forbidden truths had become a desperate, whispered gospel among the workforce. In the quiet corners of break rooms, and the shadows of parking lots. A single, terrifying consensus emerged. The hollowing out of Las Vegas was deliberate. It was a planned demolition. And while the suits and city officials pointed fingers at phantoms, the people on the ground knew the real enemy was inside the house. They were the frontline witnesses, serving the drinks, making the beds, dealing the hands. They saw with their own eyes the roped-off sections and darkened halls, even as frustrated customers were turned away. Their stories left no room for doubt. The eerie silence blanketing the strip wasn't a tragedy of circumstance. It was a masterpiece of sabotage. The only question that echoed in the emptiness was, why? Why would the kings of this kingdom intentionally burn it to the ground? Who truly profits from turning Sin City into a necropolis? And what catastrophic secret were these workers unwittingly dragging into the light? But these whispers from the casino floor did more than just expose bizarre and destructive orders. They were a chilling breadcrumb trail leading to a far grander, more sinister design. Every story of a darkened room or an artificially inflated price was a piece of a monstrous puzzle. They were, without realizing it, describing a scorched earth blueprint drafted in the highest echelons of power. At its cold black heart lay a brutal strategy: eradicate and replace. For generations, the lifeblood of Las Vegas was the everyday person. It was built on families in $19 rooms, on tourists devouring $10 buffets, and on the dreams of gamblers with just a few chips to their name. But by 2023, the corporate overlords declared that entire legacy obsolete. The masters of this universe no longer care about millions of small fish, a veteran employee explained with disgust. They only need a handful of leviathans to gorge the machine. And this wasn't some paranoid fantasy. Workers saw the brutal segregation happening right before their eyes. Vast swaths of the casino floor became forbidden zones for the common patron, while secret, opulent salons hummed for the chosen few. We were ordered to close 10 blackjack tables, a dealer recounted, while upstairs, in rooms we couldn't enter, Logos billionaires were betting more on a single hand than I make in an entire year. The desolate casino floor wasn't a sign of failure, it was a brutal, merciless filter. And of course, Wall Street's vultures were circling. Private equity ghouls had sunk their claws into Vegas, and their mandate was sickeningly simple: squeeze every last drop of profit from a shrinking, wealthier clientele. The data was damning. By 2025, the spending per visitor had exploded, even as the number of visitors plummeted. To the soulless investors, this was a resounding success. To the workers, it was the final, sickening proof that their city was being stolen and remade into a playground exclusively for the ultra-wealthy. And the complicity of the government painted the final, darkest strokes on this grim canvas. Workers remembered the condescending meetings, the hollow reassurances from executives that this was all just a phase. But the whispers from inside told a different story. A story of state regulators and federal suits being partners in the crime. We were told not to worry, that, quote, the numbers look good in Washington, one manager recalled, bewildered. What in God's name was that supposed to mean, unquote. It was a chilling message. The powers that be cared more about abstract financial data than the living, breathing soul of a city for its people. As one bartender spat, "This isn't a city anymore. It's a private theater for the global elite, and our only job is to be the silent, invisible stagehands." This brutal restructuring had 3 devastating and entirely predictable consequences. First, the little guy was annihilated. The independent motels, the local diners, the family-owned businesses that gave Vegas its character, they were all starved to death in a city that now despised the middle class. Their ruin cleared the path for the corporate titans to seize absolute control of the Strip. Second, tourism was no longer an invitation, it was a barricade. In a shocking betrayal of its own identity, Vegas purged the tens of millions of visitors, pivoting to court a far smaller, wealthier clientele. The family car was exiled, replaced by the private jet. The budget room was obliterated, making way for the luxury suite. The promise that anyone could feel like a high roller for a night was shattered. Now, only the genuine high rollers were even tolerated. Third, and most chillingly, the engineered silence bred a toxic secrecy. With the crowds gone, Vegas morphed into the perfect clandestine theater for backroom meetings, ruthless corporate negotiations, shadowy political fundraisers, and even international deals cloaked behind the facade of VIP gaming. The workers, the city's lifeblood, might not have known every sordid detail, but they witnessed enough to grasp the horrifying truth. "We're not serving America anymore," one server confessed with a sense of dread. "We're serving the billionaires who have America in a chokehold." By 2025, the monstrous transformation was complete and undeniable. A city once powered by glorious chaos had been coldly re-engineered into a controlled playground for the powerful. The Strip's workers felt a profound sense of betrayal. They had poured their lives into a city that now scorned them and the very people they had once so warmly welcomed. The question that tormented their every waking moment was the same one now haunting the very soul of Vegas. If Sin City can be so completely hollowed out and remade under a shroud of silence, who truly pulls the strings now? And just how far does their terrifying plan extend? But the most disturbing part of the Strip workers' confessions wasn't just about the lost jobs or the ghost town theaters. It was about the sinister truth the emptiness of Las Vegas was designed to conceal. The silence of the Strip, they warned, was no mere economic downturn. It was a meticulously crafted smokescreen. One security guard, a veteran of the Strip's darkest hours, whispered, "Our orders were to keep people away from certain areas, not for their safety, but because of what was unfolding inside." I saw men in expensive suits with locked briefcases slipping into private rooms at 3 a.m. I can promise you, those rooms had nothing to do with gambling. A dealer admitted she once oversaw a single session with chips valued in the millions of dollars. The so-called players weren't there for a thrill. They were like ghosts, barely speaking, never drinking, and vanishing as silently as they had appeared. That wasn't a game, she declared. That was a massive sum of money changing hands, sanitized under the bright lights of a casino. Bartenders echoed these chilling accounts. "We serve phantoms," one confessed. The bar stood desolate all night. Yet upstairs, the suites were teeming with powerful figures who couldn't care less about the Strip. These were not tourists. They were the architects of money's secret movements. The workers began to connect the terrifying dots. The emptiness wasn't a bug in the system. It was the system's most crucial feature. With the crowds gone, it became alarmingly easy to funnel colossal sums of money through the casinos unnoticed. A $5 million loss at a baccarat table was the perfect cover to launder dirty cash in an instant. A hushed real estate deal could transfer ownership of an entire casino tower without a single headline. And it was never just about the money. Some workers insisted the Strip had been converted into a stage for high-stakes political backroom deals. A stagehand chillingly recalled overhearing a manager snap, "Forget the shows. This theater is now a secure conference room." Others spoke in hushed tones about foreign investors, inscrutable billionaires from China, powerful executives from the Middle East, and shadowy oligarchs from Eastern Europe who used the manufactured emptiness as their shield. No prying cameras, no curious tourists, no unwanted attention. "This is precisely the way they designed it," one worker stated grimly. By 2025, the workers were utterly convinced that Vegas had been deliberately gutted to create a fortress of secrecy. The dazzling lights were just a distraction from the horrifying fact that the Strip was no longer America's playground. It had become a heavily fortified vault for clandestine global transactions. The locals lost their livelihoods. The tourists lost the magic. But behind those sealed, silent doors, the real, sinister game flourished. The casinos predictably denied every last word. Publicly, their executives spewed a well-rehearsed script about sustainability and adapting to market realities. Nevada officials parroted the same empty lines: inflation, airfare costs, shifting consumer habits. But the workers had seen far too much to be fooled. They had served the drinks to no one, cleaned the pristine but empty rooms, and stood guard outside doors that were never to be opened. Their quiet, desperate confessions painted a far darker picture of a city intentionally silenced so that deals worth billions could be executed in the shadows. One cocktail server, a veteran of the old Vegas, put it with heartbreaking clarity. Vegas didn't die. It was assassinated. And the emptiness was the mask the killers wore to hide their crime. The strip workers may not have known the names of the powerful players or the staggering size of the fortunes being moved, but they knew the gut-wrenching truth. Las Vegas wasn't empty because it had failed. It was empty because a hidden power wanted it that way. And that reality leaves one terrifying, inescapable question for every single one of us. If a city as loud and vibrant as Sin City can be emptied and repurposed right before our very eyes, how many other cities are being quietly rewritten while the world is deliberately distracted? Las Vegas was once the roaring, beating heart of entertainment, a sacred place where anyone could feel incandescently alive. But the harrowing confessions of its abandoned workers expose a truly monstrous truth. The silence of the casinos is not silence at all. Those shuttered hotel rooms, the ghost town theaters, none of it was a coincidence. It was a cold, calculated strategy. Insiders confessed they were under orders to keep the lights off, to shut down gaming tables in the faces of waiting crowds, to inflate prices to a point where ordinary people were priced out and driven away. They admitted to witnessing unmarked briefcases escorted into secret suites, to seeing millions in cash slide across silent tables, to catching whispers of backroom deals that had zero to do with chance. The Strip wasn't abandoned. It was systematically gutted, and the very people who were its lifeblood, the dealers, the bartenders, the housekeepers, the performers, were the first to see the rot and the first to cry foul. Las Vegas didn't just fall. It was pushed. As one worker declared, it was stolen from the people who bled for it. So this begs a terrifying question. If America's most iconic city can be silently hollowed out, what other horrors are unfolding in the shadows of our world? If Las Vegas can be completely rewired to benefit an elite few, what in God's name does that spell for the rest of us? For the towns we call home, for the jobs our families rely on, for the futures we foolishly believe are guaranteed. The lights on the Strip still blaze, but now we see the chilling truth of who they're blazing for, and the confessions of its people are a grim reminder of what festers just behind the neon glow.